Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks for joining in another podcast. And this is going to be very first podcast on security in 2023. I'm your host, Adnan Rafiq. This is one of the questions I've been getting a lot on my social media platform. Hey, how do I get started in the field of cybersecurity? In this particular podcast, we will share what are the skills you can learn, and we'll talk about how cloud security is important when it comes to the businesses. And I have today a very special guest, very known person, because I know him because he got very famous in Microsoft, I believe, Ignite conference in US a couple of years ago. His session was like all over. Everybody was talking about it. And he's very known also in Finland. And with that said, I want Sami. I really appreciate his time. And please start introducing yourself. Thank you, Sami.
Hey everyone. So my name is Sami Laiho. As said, I'm from Finland. I'm currently stationed about 40 kilometers from Helsinki, our capital. I am currently mostly teaching people in cybersecurity and Windows operating system internals and troubleshooting. I travel all around the world, speaking in different conferences, and I've been a Microsoft certified trainer for 23 or 22 years now. Had a Microsoft MVP in the core operating system since 2011.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your journey? How did you get into cybersecurity?
Well, to be fair, as I said, I started off by being a Microsoft operating system specialist. I used to work in a big training center, the biggest training center in Finland at that time. And I was kind of a household staff trainer, I'd say. So I was teaching, actually, I just checked it out some time ago. I was teaching 42 different classes. So I was basically teaching anything when it comes to Microsoft. And that's beginning of 2000. Security was a module on one of the courses, but it wasn't that big of a thing back then. So I kind of started off there, and then maybe 2012 or 2013, that was the time when cybersecurity started to be more popular. To be fair, I went to all the cybersecurity sessions, and they were, whether it was Microsoft Tech Ed or any other conference, the cybersecurity hacking, cracking, whatever sessions were always like totally crowded by people, and met Paula Januszkiewicz for the first time back then and really loved her sessions. And I the only problem for me always was that when I went to security sessions, if not talking about everyone's sessions, so let's not generalize, but I went to many of the sessions, and my problem with the sessions was that I hated two things about it. One was that they were all about, I hack you like this, I hack you like this, I crack your system like this, I can hack you this easily, and you this easily, and you all this easily. And it was all about everyone attacking you, and everyone basically just walked from the room, usually their heads down, saying things like, my company sucks. It was all about bashing on everyone, how great the hackers were. And I even at that point, I was already a blue teamer in that sense, that I was always defending the environments, and I didn't really appreciate the fact that no one actually told about the mitigations. I was missing that blue team part heavily. And then the other one was that they were always done against improperly configured operating systems. I mean, I get it if you speak about home users who have their full admin rights all the time. Every session back then was about Mimikatz can do this, Mimikatz can do that. And we, on this side, knew that Mimikatz can do this and that if it doesn't have admin rights. So basically the book from NT 3.1 in 1993 says that there's no security in Windows if you log on as an admin. So basically every core concept that I had been teaching, they completely missed those. So when you're talking to enterprise customers like Tech Ed, for example, I thought it was really ridiculous that all the demos were against improperly configured operating systems. So my background kind of gave me the motivation to go on stage and start talking about like, here's how you can hack it. But honestly, if you would have done this by the book, that would not be possible. And that's how I kind of started getting into the industry of cybersecurity. It was more about I knew so much about Windows internals that it just felt bad. I don't think I have drunk too much of the Microsoft Kool-Aid, but I think still it was unfair that everyone says like Windows hack is so easy to hack. It's like, but
Right.
you haven't even configured any of the basic principles.
Exactly. And you mentioned a good point. Knowing the operating system is very important. Some basic stuff. You got to know operating system, network, and storage and all that. Because if you don't do it right, you're already vulnerable. So did you make sure, have you gone through the list? It's not about it. You just mentioned somebody's bombarding, hey, I can do this, I can do that. That's not what cybersecurity is all about. Those who are watching something, you mentioned you have a solid background in Windows. I've seen people myself going to boot camp and all that. They're just learning tools, not basic on Windows, boot camps and all that. So security is not about just learning the tools. It's way more than that. So somebody who's been asking or reached out on my, hey, I'm a newbie. I wanted to get into cybersecurity. What's the recommendation or tips from you? Hey, go do these 3 things or 5 things first. That's going to help them. So, any recommendation for them?
There's kind of a two ways of looking at it. So one is exactly what you meant, or exactly what you said, which is that honestly, you can't secure unless you know what to secure. I mean, you need to understand the platforms. To be fair, if you take, like I teach memory dumps on troubleshooting classes. So if you take a memory dump out of an iPad and you take a memory dump out of a Windows machine, they don't really look that different. They're all running on the same kind of CPUs that both do zeros and ones at a lightning speed, so pace. So they're really not that different. I mean, but you have to understand the core concepts like how virtual memory works compared to physical memory. You have to understand how the file systems work, how permissions work, privileges work, how services work compared to user mode applications. What is the difference between user mode and kernel mode? Things like this. And that I would say that leads you into, I would always recommend everyone that they should not skip their Windows internals. So there are, start off easy, read, for example, read the Sysinternals book from Marcus Sedovich and Aaron Marcosis, the second edition. Read through that. That'll get you like from 0 to 2, and then 2 to 5 you can get with the Windows Internals book, which is now on the seventh edition. It's a horribly big thing to read, 2 books times 2 times 700 pages. It's a big one. I know it's a difficult one. I've read it a gazillion times, but it is honestly the Bible for Windows admins. So I'm a Windows guy. But Linux is a Finnish operating system, so I should. And I've actually been in school where it's mandatory to learn Linux.
Oh,
I mean, but the fair thing is that if you learn your Windows internals, you will learn your operating system basics because they're really much the same. So you should
mhm.
know the platform that you're working with, and that's something that I see people missing when they. We have people that are they educate themselves in school for cybersecurity. The first thing I have to tell them is that although now you understand what a security operations center is and what incident response does, and you know your different sorts of frameworks for security, you really have to learn how to understand the patient. So you should really learn your operating systems. That is, even Azure runs on Hyper-V, which runs on Windows. Okay,
Right.
it's not well called the same. It's cloud host, but whatever. I mean, it's still Windows.
Yep.
And that's one thing. And then the other thing is, if you are new to cybersecurity, then I think you should first try to understand the kind of different roles that cybersecurity offers. For example, how does a security operations center work? What is incident response? What does forensics really mean? All this kind of stuff. I always point people at either Pluralsight or LinkedIn Learning.
Yeah.
There's like any budget because they have a very good like fundamentals of cybersecurity course, both of them. And that will more like teach you about how this industry works. And
Okay.
then you can kind of choose your journey on where you want to concentrate. I was working for a gigantic SOC for 6 months, and 80% of the customers are using the Microsoft stack.
Okay.
Rest of them are using Palo Alto, CrowdStrike, Carbon Black. So I
Yeah.
mean, I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm a Windows guy. Currently, most of my customers run on the Microsoft stack. For those, then you have your own certification examinations and prep
Right.
tests and everything, and that's kind of more provided by Microsoft. I always believe that there is nothing better than learning from someone actually on a live session, whether it's
Mhm.
online or whether it's on site somewhere. So I, of course, but well, I'm a classroom teacher, so that's kind of makes sense for me that it's easier to learn this way. I finished today. I did a 7 hour live session for an app locker course.
Mm.
So I mean, I still think the live training is very worthy, but then we have so good resources on the video on demand side. So then I would say that LinkedIn Learning and Pluralsight are the biggest and best ones when it comes to paid services. Of course, you can get like a 1 month intro for free. And then, well, I mean, YouTube, I had my son has to go to this mandatory training, like 2 weeks working in a company. And because he didn't have any other work, then he joined me. And we traveled for 2 weeks on my normal. I was teaching a class in Austria. And
Okay.
then we traveled to Sweden and did a course there. And as he's kind of during when I'm teaching and I don't have anything for him to do, I wanted him to use that time to do exactly what I would tell basically everyone on this call. So what I did for him was that I
Mhm.
took some courses from Pluralsight and LinkedIn, as I have those. And those are good when you want to know how the industry works. But then when I wanted him also, he's 16, and I
Okay.
wanted him also to understand more about like how CPUs work, how memory works, how storage works. And he's still, because they miss all that nowadays. They
Yeah.
work on this application level. They just see an app running on a phone and they have no idea what happens behind the scenes. So for general like how computers work stuff, I actually find YouTube having more of those
Mhm.
resources. And then when it comes to actually you kind of maybe deciding on what you would like to do in cybersecurity, then that's
Right.
more for LinkedIn Learning, Pluralsight, and those paid services. And then if you want to prove yourself to someone else, it's always worthy having a certificate to show it. I have no other education than high school, and
Wow,
but
I did not know that. This is
no
awesome. I
high
mean,
school.
yeah.
And my
Wow.
dad made me go through MCSE plus internet certification. My dad made me go do it, and I was like, "Are you really seriously that I will need this for anything?" And it ended up being my whole career. So I'm
Awesome.
pro bono for certification.
That's a perfect example. So those who are watching, guys, I do not know. I have a live example, but here you go, who has a good career in the security, and so far you have learned his like how he's been gone through his journey, and not only that, how he's been coaching his son. So the one thing I liked about it that people who are watching, the fundamental, the basics remain the same. You still have to understand the CPU and the memory and all the core operating system, and those stuff you can find on YouTube, as you mentioned, Pluralsight, LinkedIn. Also, if you have some bucks, then you can buy some syllabus. CompTIA A plus has a very basic
Absolutely. Yeah.
for somebody to start with. And then if you go the advanced level, then you can learn about network plus and security plus. So what timeline we're talking about? A year is good, a 2 year ballpark for somebody. And because everybody who wants to start, then of course the next thing is, okay, how am I gonna get the job, the internship and all that?
I would say we're really looking at a year. It depends heavily on the individual, but I would say closer to a year.
Okay.
I recruited, like, I mean, everyone is so much concentrating on this old, you have to have this school degree to do anything
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And I had some trouble in convincing one of my customers that the best recruit that we had, when we asked him, "What did you study?" His only answer was, "I studied Pluralsight." But
Okay.
the customer was just like, "No, but what's your degree on?" I just studied that. But we have very talented young people coming into the industry. They can learn at a fast pace from wherever they are with very, very targeted training for a certain kind of a position. So to get yourself into the business side. Like if you want to be
Right.
an analyst on a SOC, a security operations center analyst on like they usually have many levels. So if you want to start
Right.
at the first level, for example, I would say that is closer to a year. For you to
Mhm.
understand how operating systems work, then
Right.
that'll take a little bit more time because that's just honestly something that you have to kind of draw it out and think about it. And I mean, I've read the internals book, for example, myself. I read it. I remember I was doing a course material about it. Like I run a Windows internals course for 4 days, and
Mhm.
to make a 4 day boot camp version of 1,400 pages of highly technical stuff. It took me quite a long time to get it, and I drew pictures and I made slides and I
Wow.
tried to make it into an understandable form. So it takes a little bit more time. But I mean, that's
Yep.
the same when you go to a SOC. And I
Yeah.
followed these guys around. If you go to a SOC and you see a first level person on the SOC and they see a threat. Most often what happens is that they see a threat that, for example, says that we have some suspicious activity in svc host.exe happening on
Okay.
Windows. And then they have to call the next level because the next level understands what's on that screen. The first level really first needs to kind of more operate the tools. They
Okay.
need to understand how the process works. They need to know what is done when you have an incident. How do you report this? Where do you log it? How do you preserve evidence? They need to more know how the process works. And then
Right.
when it becomes difficult, then that case is forwarded to the second level or the third level. The third level guys are the guys who understand then that, well, the second level usually understands that this SVC hosted, it looks fishy because it's not signed. It
Hmm.
is Windows is normal executable, but that must not be Microsoft's because it's not digitally signed. So they know a little bit more about the content.
Right.
And then when you get that very few, very, very difficult cases, then you will escalate those up to the third level. And those guys are many times people who have worked with operating systems for 2 decades. So it's a continuing journey, but it's also a very rewarding journey
Yeah.
because you can always get better and you can get a better position. Like one thing that I would really like everyone to understand is that cybersecurity is, of course, a very, very critical thing for us to get more people in. We really need people, but people should also understand that if you're seeking a career, it's really good to be listening to these podcasts, for example, because there's 6 jobs on the blue team side for every job on the red team side. But the red team side is always the very sexy one. It
Yeah.
sounds cool to people because someone actually pays you to try to hack into a bank.
Yeah.
What for a young person that might sound very tempting, like wow, now I can do what I actually wanted to do as a hobby. I can get paid for it. But there's 6 jobs because the red team person needs to succeed in one thing, and he's done his job. Blue team needs to be able to protect against every kind of attack there is.
Yeah.
So there's 6 jobs on the blue team side for every 1 job on the red team side. So honestly, I would like just it takes I know this because it takes a little bit of time. When I was younger, I was
Yeah.
also more keen into hacking into things.
Taxes is feeling do your taxes so you can walk out with confidence. Now,
Right.
Now that I have kids, I'm more into keeping my own nest clean. It's also a little bit like it's changed in my head as well. But that's
Right.
something that just remember if you want to get a job and you want a secure job, it's 6 times easier to get that job on the good side.
Exactly. Exactly. Because that's the impression I get when people are talk about cybersecurity is hacking. And on the other side, where you have to have all these, and this is where the growth is basically, in my opinion. On the blue
Mhm.
team, you have lot more growth. There is a transition period. So it's not necessary, but somebody to get started, as you just mentioned, SOC level one, or, front line, just to watch the dashboard and monitoring. Just learn those basic skills that you just mentioned, basic fundamentals. Who knows, within, if you're good enough, you spend more hours every day or every weekend. Within 6 months, you will be ready for that very first level of job where you can understand the dashboard and all those things. You mentioned about SOC. So, are there any tools specifically you think you want to mention, or?
Well, of course, I mean it depends totally on what you're looking for. As I'm a Microsoft person,
Yep.
I really love the Microsoft stack on this. So anything related to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint,
Okay.
that means, well, of course, it's good to understand it's good to understand Sentinel, for example, but that's more about like storing logs from my perspective. If you ask me, there are these old style socks, and
Okay.
those are CM based socks.
Yes, they are.
SIEM, CM,
Seen.
they
Yeah,
are
seen. Yep.
SIEM, yeah.
Yep.
So SIEM socks are the old way of doing this. That's where
All
you
right.
forward a gazillion log entries somewhere, and then someone would try to analyze those log entries and do something about it. I don't believe in that at all. I mean, there's a reason for someone for compliance reasons to keep your records for 2 years. Then that's fine. But I mean,
Right.
from protecting yourself from the imminent threat, which is ransomware currently mostly, that's where you need to concentrate on EDR or XDR. So endpoint
Exactly.
level protections. So Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, it doesn't only see what happens, but it can actually also mitigate those threats. And
Yeah.
many people ask me what my job currently is. And I'm a security architect for many, many different companies. And when people ask me what I do, I say I used to tell them that I will teach you concepts that will keep you from being breached, but it's been a little bit a journey for me as well to go and understand that what I nowadays answer if I get that question is my job. There is 2 hours average of a first entry into a company to gaining full domain or full global admin access. That's
Okay.
2 hours. That's 2 hours on average. To be fair, on average, they use 180 days before they do anything. They lurk in the network for half a year. But the average of being able to take down the company is 2 hours. And I always nowadays say that my job is to try to extend that 2 hours as much as I can so that the
Got it.
security operations center has time to catch them. So
Exactly.
my mentality has to change myself. I used to be a guy who keeps people out, but now
Yeah.
I'm slowing their travel
Yep.
so that someone can capture them. And that's more of these zero trust principles of assume breach. I mean,
Yeah.
now we live by the assumption that someone will breach us. Our job is to make it as slow as possible so that we can catch them before they do anything bad.
And this is perfect. So those who are watching, this is the one of the best piece of advice because there is nothing 100% secure. So you're gonna make sure you have layer defense in depth by applying so many tools, a different layer of protection. And also, I wanted to add on Azure Sentinel a little bit. This is more of an advanced, and I put together more than an hour of lecture or 90 minutes combined lecture, and this is for experienced people. So what they have improved, I don't know how much because every day Cisco, Palo, Microsoft, even Google and AWS, they have their native tools. So with Sentinel, what I've seen also, they've improved a lot on AI and ML.
Mm.
And 3 years ago, when they were in preview, I was the first very few one who was into the preview and deployed those. And there was false positive, that's for sure, with every product. However, the thing I like, couple of things, is they have data connectors. So if I need to ingest the log from 365, man, it's just 2 minutes. I have to set it up, ingest the log. 24 hours later, I have all the logs in the scene. And this is where they have alert fatigue and all that, their AI and ML. So they look at the correlated events and then they appear on the dashboard. So if you have Sentinel or any SIEM, again, we're talking about Windows. So I would say just go set it up. 90 days, you get log ingestion, I believe, for free. So if you set up the 365 and then you have Azure Active Directory, you have identity and access management, those connectors are there. And not only that, you can even bring the logs from Palos and Carbon
Mm.
Black or other different endpoints. So now since we are talking about cloud, right? So let's change a little bit on the cloud native tools. I mean, if you want to add, you mentioned Defender, something along those lines. What do you see? What's your experience?
Well, yeah, I would say that the single pane for operations, mostly for Microsoft, is really through the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint toolkit. If we're talking about Microsoft technologies, then one thing that is super important nowadays is Microsoft Defender for cloud apps, where we can actually, which is very vital for companies to be able to have different policies for access to these cloud native applications, whatever they are. Conditional access is a core functionality that everyone has to learn and learn how to operate it and how the whole thing itself works. Conditional
So
access relates to everything.
two things you mentioned: conditional access, and maybe you want to touch base a little bit identity.
Privileged identity management in general. So PIM, whether it's Microsoft or not, we're done with the days of everyone being an admin or not. We've gone into just enough access, just in time, meaning that you will request for being a administrator of something and you're time bombed of not staying such forever. So it's just a role that gets added to you through PIM. Another tool with this is full of PIM, PAM, PAM. But PIM, then we have PAM, which is privileged access management.
Management. Yep.
If you want to have a good toolkit to also learn, it would actually be the new just published Intune Suite. The Intune Suite contains Microsoft's first ever privileged access management, which relates to the fact that we can actually control processes and their admin rights instead of always controlling a user or a computer of being an admin. So
Okay.
that's the first one for Microsoft. That's being filled with tools like Beyond Trust, Policy Pack, Admin by Request, Ivanti.
I see.
There's different providers that did PAM because we say that we've been in these different kinds of epochs. We've been in this time where everyone was an admin and could run whatever they want. And we're kind of like currently we're in a place where most people are understanding that you should not be an admin all the time, but we still allow any kind of applications to run. And we're moving towards this app control epoch where we actually no one's an admin unless needed and only for a specified time. And also that we allow list binaries that we are going to run. We have more than 1 million pieces of malware found per day, out of which 90% only appear once. So there's no way of this with the traditional like anti-malware stuff, which means that we are going from listing 1 million bad things per day into listing your 100 good applications that you use, and then we secure them with cloud native stuff. But I would say like Windows Defender for cloud apps, that's something that's a very big and good thing to learn. Intune Suite has a lot of different tools in it, but the privileged access management was just announced and it's currently free for testing. So it's a good time to learn it. Microsoft is a great example of this. Microsoft in their Redmond domain, which is the on-prem domain, they had 140,000 local admins.
Wow.
So they were telling everyone that you can be an admin, but they themselves only in the new cloud-only connected kind of employee force that they have, they are now actually limited to being just limited users instead of admins. So now Microsoft started to understand the industry with their problems of not having enough rights to install a printer at home or stuff like that. So now they finally had the motivation to build a toolkit for this. So this privileged access management, now even Microsoft being a player in it, it's a really big thing. Allow listing is a really big thing in general, whether that's Carbon Black, Beyond Trust, App Locker. App Locker was just changed heavily because App Locker is now available for professional versions, as it was an enterprise feature only when it's managed through group policy. And then I see these as waves. I have been consulting the same customers first for the first decade for getting rid of their admin rights. Then they came back. And then there was the second wave where we deployed App Locker or some kind of an allow listing for them, Windows Defender application control, whatever, some sort of an allow listing solution to control the binary. And then now, currently, the biggest hype is about privileged access works. Really easier way to secure your from access to malware. So, at the end of the day, you just make sure that devices that can take down your environment can't talk to Facebook. And people who have enough rights to take down your environment can't log on to devices that can access Facebook. So we basically, simple concepts. We keep excessive privileges away from threats. Just sandbox them out of each other. And that's where privileged access workstations, privileged identity management, privileged access management, all these cool 3-letter acronyms, PAWS, PAM, PIM.
So you mentioned a good example. So what I'm hearing is that, native root cloud security, a lot of development, there are challenges. But for somebody who wants to start, if it's a Microsoft shop and all that, first look at those. What are on the roadmap? So 2 questions I have. Like one is any advice for the businesses, or do you want to spend 2 minutes on maybe ransomware? And then the next question, what's in a day life of a cybersecurity expert?
So first of all, what I will nowadays start every conversation that I get into with a new customer, when we have really cool concepts that we should deploy, I first want to make sure that we don't get hacked while we're deploying these concepts. And I want everyone to be able to sleep well. First thing you need to do to be able to sleep well with your company is you separate your cloud or domain access from your backups. And if you're using hypervisors for anything, just separate these 3 layers from each other. If you're in a situation where you have a global admin or a domain admin, that can, with that account, wipe out your backups. Very bad place. You have to make sure that you yourself, as an admin of your environment, cannot destroy your backups. So there's only 2 options. Azure or Amazon or Google all offer immutable backups. Immutable backups are backups. They have a certain lifespan that no one can delete them. So we can say that we have an immutable backup for 14 days. Then even the company cannot delete it. It's of
Nice.
course
Okay.
it's a little bit of an investment because that means that in the next 14 days I also can't give up on my backups because it's
But,
completely
but
out of reach.
but it's all about the risk, right? You got to spend the money. It's your
Yes,
business risk. So you have to evaluate your business risk. Yep. Right.
offline backups can be achieved with tapes or USB
Yeah.
discs
But you
or
don't want to
whatever.
do
I mean
that.
that yes,
The-
exactly. So that's
the-
we've done that before. Now we will do the same concept. The tools have just changed a little bit. So first you have to make those background checks. So if
right.
you're if you're also a hybrid environment, which means that you're also running stuff on VMware or Hyper-V, make sure that your domain admins cannot manage your fabric. So your domain admins cannot wipe out your VMware or Hyper-V. Your domain admins can't wipe out your backups. So the same concepts for both on-prem and cloud in that sense. We can just in the cloud, it's a little bit easier because we don't have to invest in this physical hardware to do all this.
Right.
It's configuration, it's code that we put in. No, we don't even have to code anything. It's of course no code, but I mean, it's a little bit different things done. I mean, same things done in a little bit different way. So that's the
Perfect.
first thing. And that kind of allows us to sleep well because if we start to implement something bigger, we don't want to get breached while we're doing it. So I
Right.
always have to start with that. And then after that, from ransomware's perspective, they want admin rights. Don't give it to them. Don't
Okay.
have access to weapons. If you have local admin rights on your machine, you have access to weapons. We all know weapons don't kill people, bullets do. But honestly,
Yeah.
if you take a bullet and try to throw it at some people, it probably doesn't hurt that much. I mean,
Right.
honestly, you control the guns in Windows by removing admin rights, and that's
Makes
what
sense.
they want. Last year, 55% of all vulnerabilities were done to gain privileged access. They want privileged access. Don't give them privileged access. That's the first thing. Then when you get rid of your admin rights, then it's time to start controlling your binaries, whatever kind of allow listing solution you have in place. Trust me, it's nice to add one good application per month rather than trying to add 1 million bad applications per day. And one
Right.
thing, privileged access workstation, don't manage your environment from the same device where you go Facebook. That is the
Mm.
simplest thing you can do, and you can take down your attack surface by 95%. Take patching very seriously. I try to tell people patch more, test less. I know it's really hard to convince your boss about this, but
Mhm.
honestly, when your server goes down for 1 hour because you installed a bad patch, they should actually be sleeping better because that will probably prevent you from being down for a month. So
Right.
vulnerabilities last year and the year before, vulnerabilities were for the first time in history, phishing was not number one attack vector for ransomware. So this was vulnerability. So concentrate on patching.
But those are the very good recommendations. So pretty much you explain like life in a day of a cybersecurity. Something you wanted to add?
No, I don't think so. My life is, of course, a little bit different because I'm more the teacher and the architect who just tries to teach other people to go and deploy good stuff all around the world. I think my responsibility is really big, but my day is probably a little bit different than anyone else's. So, but
Right.
if talking about a cybersecurity person, it's keeping yourself up to date. Yes, learn
So
all the time. You're not just getting a master's one time. You're now continuously educating yourself.
so I really appreciate Sami. So thankful to you. You took out this time, educated myself and the people who are going to watch this podcast. And hopefully in the future, we'll have some more specific discussion if you have time and depending on that. And Sami is also, I put his details at MVP. He's very known. He's been published his name a lot of time in Finland and is very known to Microsoft communities. Do check it out, Google it. I'll put all his information in the description below this video. And I really appreciate people like him who get on the call, share their knowledge. I really appreciate it, Sami.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
In today's podcast, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, John Linkowski, renowned cybersecurity expert and engineer. This podcast is all about keeping safe online. We'll talk about the big problems in cybersecurity, share some top tips, and give advice for anyone interested in this kind of work. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining another podcast. In this podcast, we are talking about some of the cybersecurity challenges. What are the cyber threats and what can be done? Are the best practices I need to implement? Or if you're a business, basically, if you're going to cloud, what are the misconceptions, what we see a lot of time, and how you can address that? They are simple, basic, some steps. Also, the subject matter I have has been in the industry for 30 years, Palo Alto expert and Cisco. So we're going to talk about career specific. We're going to talk about how different cybersecurity information roles are there. So that's being said, and I have John Linskowski. John is CSSP. He's been in the industry, as I said, for 30 plus years. He's very active in Palo Alto network community. He has a lot of networking background, network security. He's also education chair for IS2. I'll just hold my breath and have John introduce himself.
Thanks, Adnan. So John Linkowski, yep. I have been in the industry for about 30 years, probably 28, 29 years. So rounded up a little bit. Started out my career as doing support services and, kind of help desk kind of things. Got into doing more of network engineering and building out network support, doing network support, working with a network manager at the time where I was in my career because it was all new to him and he needed some help. And I said, hey, I'd like to learn this, and got into that and worked and did that for, I don't know, 15 years, more than that, maybe. And then that kind of encompassed doing security, firewall support, IDS stuff, building policy, firewalls, etc. And then somewhere, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, that kind of split. So my career was a little bit less on the networking side and more on the security side. And that's kind of where I've been ever since. And I do a little bit. I mean, you always still need some networking background, so that certainly is not hurtful at all. Very, very beneficial for me in my career in that sense, and knowing both sides of the house. I also am a part-time professor at Mercer County Community College here in Jersey, so I've been doing that for about 25 years this semester. In fact, I start the spring semester tomorrow evening. Next semester starts. So I would teach the Cisco Academy through network engineering. We do support in terms of teaching, in terms of route switch, wireless security, everything else in between, everything Cisco related, wireless, pretty much everything, soup to nuts, protocols, routing, etc. And all that's good. In addition to that, as you mentioned, I do cybersecurity mentoring for ISC2. And from that, I branched out and got involved in doing cybersecurity mentoring for the CWA, or Cybersecurity Workforce Alliance, which partners with IQ4. We do a lot of mentoring. I've been doing that for about 3 years now. We do some mentoring for military who are coming into civilian life and want to get more involved in the cyber. They did that when they were serving our country, and now they want to get to that in the civilian life. And also there is a colleges that free training, so to speak. So they have colleges, and we do insider threat training. We mentor students and help them align with soft skills and also the cybersecurity skills, and doing presentation. We give them case studies and things like that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
No, that's pretty good. And in a short time, you had like a whole 30 years. So again, those people who are watching, you can see the depth and width what we bring on this podcast. They are not typical podcasts, as I said before. Most of the people who are on my podcast from the industry, so we go and develop and practice. We're all practitioner here. So I really, again, thank you, John. So I think really we were talking offline, and let's start this time something of the challenges, because what are the challenges like from the businesses and mid-sized businesses? Of course, big large enterprise, they have a lot of money, a lot of budget. But again, there's a section of like 80-90% of the businesses, which is small businesses.
Sure.
And they may not have a budget to hire a dedicated person. I want to start with the importance of a strong password, right? It's one of those. I have another 4 more or 3 more tips, which I will share. But let's talk about how important it is, like, and what could be the consequences if a business is not really practicing a strong or good password.
That's a good point, right? And I think passwords are like putting on seatbelts, right? All right, everyone knows to get in their vehicle, they put on their seatbelt. It should be second nature to everyone, right? Especially in 2024, or certainly for the last 20 years or so, right? Passwords are the same way, in the sense that we know we have to set strong passwords. We have to make them not easily guessable, right? So you don't want to do things like your spouse's name, your dog's name, an anniversary date, Very simple things like that. And believe it or not, there's still a majority of people out there. It's published every year, Verizon Security Report, other reports, Unit 42, et cetera, where people use password 1234, or they use welcome 1234, or some combination thereof, something that's easily guessable. It's known that if the longer the password is, the harder it is to guess. The more combinations of passwords that you use in terms of numbers, uppercase, lowercase, symbols, it's harder to guess. And in fact, I think we have to stop thinking of passwords as passwords and think of using more passphrases, right? Think of some sort of statement that you might know, something that you can think of for yourself. I like watching soccer. I like watching football, and then change some of the letters and the names, some of the letters and symbols into symbols and uppercase and lowercase and mix it around. That's not really dictionary attackable, right? You can't use rainbow tables and things that are out there in the wild to necessarily attack those things. So for an example, if you have a 12-character password and you're using a combination of letters, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols, a 12-character password would take about 35,000 years to break in a typical hacking scenario, right? If you use a password that is 6 characters and you use that same combination of letters, passwords, it could be cracked in probably about 5 to 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So you see the length there. I'm doubling the length, and I've added literally 34,000 years to it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be some sort of complex, long thing that you to write down or look up every time. It should be some sort of phrase in your mind that you know that you can recite and just know which letters that you're changing, and then modify that. So it doesn't matter if you're a big company, small company, educational institution, whatever, or even you and I for our own personal side of things. We should use complex passwords. Not only that, but we should also use MFA or multi-factor authentication everywhere and anywhere possible, anywhere humanly possible. Certainly on things like your banking and anywhere that your PII or personal identifiable information is going to be exposed or potentially given out. Your address, your phone number, social security, banking information is clearly anything like that. We all do things on our phones. Everybody has one of these devices. I don't care if you're an Android person or you're an iPhone person. We all do it. We all have the apps there. We all do our banking there. We all do our, maybe make our, log into our insurance, stuff like that. Passwords is one thing, but MFA or multi-factor, use Google Authenticator, use Duo, use some sort of multi-factor authenticator. I don't care if it's even for your Amazon account, right? Amazon can do multi-factor, and it is critical. People say, it's another step I have to do. Yeah, well, it's another step to protect your data and your information. Certainly anything where you do anything financial, you're going to want that. And anything, again, with that PII, personal identifiable information, or credit card financial, you're going to want that. So again, just closing that gap is that having those passwords set and changing them regularly, right? Someone I read, and I don't know who quoted it, but it's passwords are like underwear. Change them often, and always use a new one, right? So I'm sure someone, I certainly is not me. I'm not taking credit for it, but it's funny, but it's easy to remember, right? Because it's funny. And you don't want to wear the same pair of underwear, and you want to change them very frequently. That's what we say about passwords. And the only thing I'd add to that is make them longer and complex. So
Right. Again, that's no rocket science, as everybody can do it, and pretty much these services are available from every banking, financial. So there's no reason for financials. You mentioned about personal identification, the information. So it's an extra step, but this is the lifestyle we live in today.
Let's take it a step further, right? So we're all familiar with the new surge of artificial intelligence, AI, large language models. This is nothing new to the us in technology, right? We've heard about it. Everybody's hearing about it. Everyone's writing about it. ChatGPT, Bard, et cetera, et cetera. I don't care anything about. I mean, I do care, but the models aren't important for this. What it is now is the deep fakes, right? So the deep fakes are what's being very scary, because the deep fakes are where you are having phone calls that are automated using AI, using someone else's voice. It could be your child's, a spouse's, a parent, something like that, where they're using deep fake tools and technologies that are all freely available, by the way. You and I can go out and do it right now. I don't have to pay big bucks to do it. Here's the issue, is that a lot of these things, and it started out as what they called a grandparent scam, right? So the grandparent scam is, my son or my daughter happen to call my in-laws or something and say, hey, grandma, my car broke down and I need $300 to get a tow, and I don't have the money. Could you please wire it to me? Well, the first thing grandma and grandpa is going to do is say, of course, I'm going to help you. Of course, I'm going to do it. I will wire this money, $300. It's not the end of the world. And the money's gone. Obviously, that's a scam. And it preys on grandparents. That's why it kind of was called that. It can happen to anybody, by the way.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean you have to be a grandparent. So here's the thing, adding on to our password conversation, is something I do with my own family, and we have done with my in-laws and the grandparents in my family, is we set up a family password. So God forbid there is a real situation where one of my kids or my nieces happen to call my in-laws and say that they're in an emergency situation. We have a family password that is used amongst them. So my in-laws know to ask for that password. It's just something we only know. It's something not easily guessable, but it's something our family knows. And that would prove to my in-laws that it is really one of their grandchildren calling. And it's safe. It's good to do this because it's another layer of protection, because an AI isn't going to be able to deep fake guess the password that my family has verbally talked about and we've all memorized. It's one word, simple and easy. And it's something that I suggest, it's something that's good to have for your family because of the stuff happening with AI now. So it just takes that password thing another level, right? People aren't going to be able to guess your family password when it's something that's just verbal, not written down, or electronic. So just to add to that.
No, literally I put a video on this similar topic a few days ago, and I kind of put the image with the generative AI and build in a story that, because the deep fake is now going to the next level, not to the voice, is going to the image, the video.
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
And
yes.
One of the PhD researcher from Google, or one of those guys, I was doing some research, I don't remember who exactly. It will be in the very future very difficult to figure out what's the original and what's the defect one. And this is where what you just mentioned, to have your family passphrase is going to help.
Absolutely.
Now that's very important thing, because this is going to be the more craziness in 2020.
It is. And by the way, this is something we're across the Rubicon, right? This is now, we don't know what we don't know yet. And the way AI technology is evolving on a daily basis, and I mean daily, it's very hard to keep up for anybody, a security practitioner or anybody in technology, let alone those that are, let's just call them non-security professionals. So it's going to be very difficult. Your average everyday, Jane and Joe citizen aren't going to realize that, oh, wait a minute, you mean these things can actually happen and we could have these things happen. They're not they're not aware of them yet. So it's only going to increase, unfortunately.
So here's one more tip I want to give it to people who are still watching. The companies do a lot of backup. What I've seen, they never test it. So if you're one of those companies, make sure when you perform the backup, do have a practice of restoring it every quarter or every 6 months, depending your business, what's the risk, what type of data is there. But again, make sure you test your backup, especially in the cloud environment. It's very easy. You can set up the VM, whichever the scenario is. It's one of the tip I wanted to give people, just make sure. So
not only that, but you want to validate your data, right? So you can restore that. And if you pick a random server or random, something that you're restoring, whatever happens to be for your organization, now you need to validate that that data is proper, is correct, that nothing has been manipulated. We need to secure data in motion. We need to secure data at rest, right? So if it's at rest in a cloud storage area, that's fantastic. It's modern. It's here. But now when we restore it, we want to make sure that what we're restoring is exactly what we initially set up there, and nothing was manipulated, either while it was at rest or in motion. So I think that is and also just testing your backups and restore is a number one priority. Number two is validating that data is in fact the correct data when it comes back, and nothing has been manipulated, either, obviously for the negative. So I think that's important to understand.
And literally, we gave you a tip how to deal with ransomware free of cost.
Free of cost, exactly right.
So that's one of the tip and takeaway. And third is, Before we gonna move into the career and all that, so we're gonna talk about it. One more point is I want to make sure, or we want to call out, is about misconception, because the companies think they move to the cloud. And literally, I was reading something on the Reddit yesterday, and there was somebody, they were like, perception is still, companies think they move to the cloud, though no, it's the cloud service provider responsibility to take care of data security. But this is the biggest mistake that you can have, because end of the day, it's your data, right? You own
100%.
it, you're responsible for it.
Right, exactly. So, if you have stuff like IaaS, or infrastructure as a service, where they own the they own the servers, they own the hardware, they own the security stack, even everything, that data that still lives in their cloud, whether it's AWS or it's Google or it's Azure, it doesn't matter. It does not matter where it is. That data is still yours. You own it. You have to validate it. You have to make sure that it's clean. Whatever is up there is your responsibility. They're just basically, it's basically like, you could equate it to saying, well, I parked my car in this public parking garage, and someone next to me, dinged my door when they got out of their car. That's not the parking garage's fault. It's the fact that you parked crooked, or you didn't park properly, or the other person was hastily and got in and out. Maybe it's a silly analogy, but the point being is the parking garage did nothing wrong. Your car is stored there,
Yeah.
but you didn't take care of your data properly, or you parked improperly, you parked in the wrong spot, etc. Or you parked your large vehicle in a small parking spot.
Yeah.
You didn't follow the rules, so to speak. It's your responsibility. So again, a silly analogy, but it kind of makes the same sense. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. It's a shared space, basically, so
Yeah.
you cannot blame somebody. It's a shared space, shared model. So what you have to do is just make sure you put your data out there. Again, it's your responsibility. Only thing what you're not managing is underlying physical hardware. So you don't
Correct.
have access to the routers and switches and all the wire and all those things. But end of the day, you have tight security controls around that, and every provider has that. So something you gotta be careful and think about it. So that's what we talked a lot about, industry and threats and how businesses can take these steps. And I've seen you're also pretty busy and pretty active in Palo Alto user groups and communities, same Microsoft I'm
Yep.
involved with. So I want to talk about it. And the reason I brought it up is specifically Palo Alto, because of vendor specific, and they're known. So definitely, when it comes to in the market for the people with in the career, they got to have some skills.
Sure.
So shed some light on that, and also about the IC2 mentorship stuff, and then we see if we
Absolutely.
can cover in a few short minutes. Yeah.
Sure. So for Palo Alto, I'm involved with Palo Alto because my organization, and I've used Palo Alto firewalls and their product security suite products for many years. And within my organization, I'm a SME, or a subject matter expert, with the Palo Alto. And I've been involved with the Fuel user group since its inception, which was, I believe, like 2013, 2015. I don't remember, but it, almost 10 years ago, give or take. And it started out as a very small organization, has grown to something obviously very large. And I applied to be, there was an open position on the board of directors back in 2019 or 2020, maybe, I can't remember exactly, apologize. And I applied for it, and you have to be a member, and then you went through an interview process, and then other board members, et cetera, et cetera. And I was elected to the board on a 2-year term, and then was back in December of 2022, I was elected as the vice president of the board for the worldwide community, the Fuel user group. So it's in a process right now. The Fuel user group for Palo Alto is kind of in a flux right now. It's changing over to being more. It was independent from Palo Alto. So the user group community was separate from Palo Alto. That's all fine and well. And now what's happening is those two are kind of starting to merge together a little bit more, where Palo Alto is becoming more involved instead of having Fuel as an independent entity. That's a good thing. I find it to be good, because now we have the power of Palo behind us. And Palo has been very supportive for Fuel. They're absolutely supportive, no question about that. They're full support of it. But they've always kept it as an independent entity. That's coming along, and that's well. And there's a lot of activity in their live community, and within the Palo Alto user community, there's a lot of stuff ongoing. And the reason is because Palo just was a firewall company years ago. When I first started working with Palo Alto as a customer, they just made firewalls, and they made very good firewalls, layer 7 firewall. Now they have security suites, cloud, they have everything, and everything integrates. And that's what makes them very, very powerful in that sense, because you literally can build things in a stack with just licensing, as opposed to buying more and more and more hardware. So that's kind of the good thing. The ISC2. So again, being a member of the ISC2, I keep wanting to say ISC squared because they changed their name, as everyone knows. It's still stuck in my head. So when I joined the New Jersey chapter a few years back, I don't know, 4 years back. So I joined as a member of that and started participating. That the New Jersey chapter has grown extensively in the last 3 or 4 years. It's fantastic. I believe we have close to 500 members. It's the largest chapter in North America, and it's very, very powerful size. It's growing. We have a lot of great members. And in October, I was asked to join the board as the education chair. They had an education piece, but as I mentioned at the top of the conversation, I'm involved a lot with education and doing the mentoring. So I wanted to take this in a kind of different direction. So Ken Fishkin, who was our president, nominated me to be on that, and I was voted in to be the chair, the education chair. And we have now, on just the committee for education, we have about 8 people just since the end of last year that have reached out and said, I want to be involved. So we're having kind of monthly meetings to kind of get ourselves rolling and moving through. And the idea of the education piece for ISC2 in our chapter is 2 things. One is that we want to educate the community in cyber, stuff like you and I have been talking about. We want to make sure people, everyday people, not just businesses, but everything from mom and pops, individuals, through schools, through higher education, small business, medium business, communities, police and fire, anything that involves people that use connectivity, that has connectivity, and security needs to be a concern. I don't care who you are. I don't care what, we want to educate them and help. This is free, right? We want to do this as part of our charter. Number 2 is we want to also continue to educate our own members and how we can better improve ourselves. What things do we want to learn as cyber technologists and improve our skill sets? So we have a lot planned for 2024, and I'm looking really forward to keep it moving forward. So it's a great organization, and I'm very, very proud to be part of it. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, definitely. So I just want to add here also, those who are in New Jersey, definitely, we do a lot of on-site or what you call face-to-face social events and meetup. We had a lot of 4 or 6 last year. We're going to have a lot more this year. So if you're in Jersey, definitely make sure you attend one of those. And I mean, there is no alternate for meeting in person. I'm a strong believer in that. The best connection I've ever made is just meeting in person, regardless. And this is one of the podcasts is the outcome of that. So you never know whom you're going to meet. And that's the biggest opportunity, whether you're experienced, whether you're new, whichever the case is, make sure chapter, become a member. It's paid, but it's worth it. And then it will open a lot of opportunity and grow your social network. Before we close or this today's podcast is misconception. One of the biggest misconception of cybersecurity engineer role is like, think of it as a guy in the hoodie. It's just like a hacker. I mean, there are more than 10 roles. You and I can talk to spend an hour. What those roles are, right?
There's dozens and dozens. And what I mean by that is that, cybersecurity, you think of it as an a tent or an umbrella or something. Underneath there's dozens of different careers under cybersecurity, right? So you have SOC analysts, you have blue team, red team, you have engineers, you have threat analysts, you have governance and risk compliance people that, believe it or not, fall under cybersecurity in most cases. You have people who just do nothing but malware and threat analysis all day, every day. You have firewall engineers, etc. So I equate it to if someone were to ask you, if someone were to have a conversation, you meet somebody, you're at an event, and someone says, "Oh, hi, I'm John. What do you do?" And that person says, "Oh, well, I'm in the medical field." Well, the next question you're going to always say is, oh, what do you do in the medical field? Because we all know that the medical field has hundreds of jobs. Well, I'm a phlebotomist, I'm an x-ray technician, I'm a nurse, etc. That's the same analogy I use for cybersecurity. So if somebody comes to me and says, oh, I'm in cybersecurity, I say I'm a cybersecurity engineer or a cybersecurity architect. I kind of have a dual role, and this is what I do. Create this, build this, et cetera, and they get a more granular understanding. You could just say you're in cybersecurity, and that's the 10,000 foot view, right? It's the same thing as if you said someone, I'm a pilot. Well, are you a pilot for the military? Are you a commercial airline pilot? Are you a FedEx pilot? Do you fly helicopters? You could be a chopper pilot, right? They're all pilots, but they're very specific to the aircraft and the device they fly. So again, it's just an analogy to kind of explain. So when people think, well, how do I get started in cybersecurity? I go, well, what do you like to do in cybersecurity?
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean? What do I like to do? I go, well, what do you like? Do you like working with people? Do you like working on your own? Do you like getting involved in the bits and bytes of what's going on through the wire? Or do you care about, looking for threats and malware and things like that? Or do you want to do all the governance and risk, and which is, I call it quote unquote paperwork, right? There's more to it than that. I'm just being very generic, but there's a lot of policy and written policy that has to go with that. Now, there's a huge place for that. Obviously, it's needed, but some people might go, I want nothing to do with that. I want to do more hands-on stuff. So again, it's a vast amount of careers underneath the cybersecurity umbrella.
I think the understanding has to be there. We live in ChatGPT, so don't come with the high level question. I want to start it. Do homework and find your interest. Whether you want to be hands-on, break and fix, want to get into that, or you want to go to a different side of it. As I said, there are so many different directions within the career, and be specific about it. And time has gone where you can just have a very one high level and you get into the cybersecurity. Now you have to find your niche within that area, like
100%.
What exactly you just said.
Cloud security, do you want to do ethical hacking? Do you want to do, penetration testing? Exactly. Right. And there's some cool factors to a lot of that. I mean, you might just want to do network design or security design and engineering. You could do that working for a company that does that for customers, or you could do it for your own individual company that you work for. So it really, I don't want to say it's unlimited. It's certainly not. There's a limit, but it's not two things or one thing. It's dozens of different areas, and everything, just like in the medical field, using that same analogy, everything has its own specific knowledge, right? You have to know more about this if you're in GRC and compliance, or you have to know more about this if you're doing pen testing, or certainly ransomware and malware and threat analysis, those kind of things. They all require different skill sets.
Career advice, right? This is the common question. People struggle with experience versus the qualification. They may have qualification, but they have difficulty finding a job.
In my opinion, I think it's a balance. I think it's very good to have the education side, maybe some certifications, not a truckload of certifications, not more certifications than you can put after your last name on a signature. I'm talking about one or two solid certifications. Maybe it's certified ethical hacking. Maybe it's a CISSP. Maybe it's Security Plus. Maybe it's the CC certification, which is new from ISC2, and it's free. There are a lot of different certifications out there that you can get, but focus on one. Don't try to accomplish them all. From a job point of view, I think a lot of people that I've talked to during the mentoring sessions that I've done, a lot of people go, well, I'm looking for this particular job and I want it to be, at this particular location, and I only want to work this time and I want to work this hours, but no one's getting back to me. And I find that it comes down a lot of times to the person and what they are willing to do. And in my case, my advice is, if you really want to be involved in security, you need to get involved in IT at some point. If you're working at the help desk and you're running around replacing keyboards and monitors, start there. Get your foot in the door, build yourself a name. The next thing you know, you're being asked to do projects, or the next thing you know, you're being involved in bigger projects and activities within your organization. And the next thing you know, then maybe you're able to branch off into something else. Oh, by the way, I have this certification, and it can absolutely help you. I think that's it. try to get a job in IT at any level and work your way from there, because all the experience counts. I don't care, no matter what, it all counts.
No, so yeah, we'll close on that note. Just get any job in the field of IT, and we have covered some best practices, mentorship. So go back, watch the video for the tips for the businesses. Go back, watch the video. We have put the tips. So a lot of stuff we have covered. We have gone above more over time, but again, this is a lot of stuff that cannot be covered in a call like this. But John, again, I really appreciate it and thank you. And we'll see you in our next podcast.
Thanks, Adnan. Really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in again this series of podcasts. I try to bring some people from the industry who are basically the consultant in the field. So these people on this podcast are really amazing people who take out this time getting on my podcast and help me understand, educate, help you understand, educate. It's good takeaways for everyone who are either seeking career, who wants to become a architect, who want to be a consultant, and even the companies who wanted to understand what those solutions are and how these solutions can help them. So that's being said, I have another Microsoft MVP, Yannick Trevor, and glad to have him on the call. And I think Yannick is from Sweden, right, Yannick?
Almost. I'm from Switzerland. Yes, that's
Switzerland,
very
right?
common.
Yeah. So Yannick is the Microsoft Azure MVP, and I'll have Yannick give him a little introduction about himself, and then we go from there. Over to you, Yannick.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Yannick Raber, as you just said. So first of all, Anand, thank you very much in this podcast. Yeah, I'm Azure MVP and security MVP since 2021 Azure, and this year I got honored with the second award with the security award as well. I work and live in Switzerland. I co-founded Joker IT, where I work as an Azure solution architect and a consultant, and of course a member of board. So I also run the companies together with my co-founders. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Even this is good. So we'll explore about that entrepreneurship also. But again, congratulations, man. Being an MVP and retaining it, that takes a lot of effort. And yeah, and Joker ID is funny. But again, we wanted to know a little bit background, if you would like to share, and a little bit about your career journey for the people who are listening to us.
Yeah, sure. Of course. So I started my IT career about 15 years ago as an intern in IT engineering. After that, I had several roles in different companies. So I came around a bit, sometimes more technical related, sometimes more leaning towards business. Yeah. So thanks to this, as well as my graduation in business IT later on, I've been able to fulfill many different things and roles within companies, including consulting, business development, team leading as well. And what I really like, educating professionals beside my obvious technical tasks as an IT engineer. So then a few years ago of today, that's what I was speaking about before, I co-founded Joker IT, where I work ever since as a solution expert and member of board. Yeah. So that's the story behind my journey. Yeah.
Right. So one of the questions I get a lot of time is, do you need a degree in IT to start a career in IT? Do you, in your region, do you have the requirement for having a 4 years degree?
I don't think so. I think, especially in the situation now, it's probably the easiest time ever to get to get a job in IT. But you need education, and not a specific degree, I would say, but you need to have a lot of motivation to educate yourself on everyday basis, right? So you really need to do your own research, willing to learn every day and get hands-on and just know your stuff, because IT is not that much of an 8 to 5 job. It's transforming a lot nowadays anyway. So I would say no, you don't need specifically a degree, but of course it helps.
Right. Yeah, because of the demand versus supply, there's a huge demand. So you don't want to wait 4 years. Just learn the skills and get in the market based on the skill what you learn, right? One of the most commonly question asked on social media or even on internet, a day in the life of, it can be a cloud engineer, cloud security engineer, architect, or basically this type of role, whether you're customer facing, sales. So Can you share a little bit about on that? What does a typical day look like for you, or a week, or something along those lines?
Typical day is pretty hard to explain because I think there is nothing like a typical day in my job, because I have a very exciting job, as not a single day is like the other. Mainly, I work as an Azure solution expert and consultant. So I consult customers on their path in the cloud to leverage their potential, right? So their potential of their business with the Microsoft cloud. So all those customers of all size, from a few employees up to international enterprises, they have very different stakeholders and therefore very different needs as well. So diverse regulatories from various industries, which is part of that as well. So technical as well as on the business side, which makes my job very interesting, right? So there's the stakeholders with very different needs in the whole spectrum. As well as an MCT, I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer. As I mentioned at the beginning, I really like to educate professionals as well, to, for example, also people without a degree, so they can get into the cloud and get into IT. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, so I also provide Microsoft trainings about Azure now and then to educate those professionals or future professionals also. Beside all that, I co-run and develop my company, of course, which I founded. So therefore, I have a very diverse role, I would say, or several roles. So this is hard to explain. Like, how does a typical day look like? As there is no such thing. Yeah.
No, fair enough. Because end of the day, basically your role is helping the business, helping the customer. And if it gets too technical, being an expert, you can have those technical conversation as well. So again, it comes with the experience. It's a step by step thing. When you grow in your career, you get to the point. There's no such thing overnight or shortcuts. But as long as you have clear vision, you get to the point where you enjoy your job. So that's very important.
Yeah, I think that's a major point you said, actually, enjoying your job. That's also regarding the question you said about, do you need a degree? No, you need motivation. You need to like what you do, right? That's for me the most important thing.
So yeah, I mean, now I think we can get to the next point where your specialty or area, where how do you help those businesses with what type of solutions?
Let's get started very easy. So Defender for Cloud is a service which helps you to protect your cloud services, your cloud environment at the end of the day, right? That's basically the very high level job of Defender for Cloud. So it's a comprehensive solution that integrates with Azure, but as well with other cloud platforms to provide visibility, threat detection, and response capabilities. It's a very handy solution since it combines several capabilities. For example, like the workload protection, it combines things such as the various Defender you can leverage in the cloud. For example, Defender for server, for database, storage, and so on, containers, and keep going, right? So that's a great thing. And it also does this all natively in the cloud and without any agent installed on a DB, for example, on Azure. It also helps you to prevent breaches, which is a big part, as it analyzes your Azure environment and it provides best practice recommendations. It proposes, therefore, based on those best practice recommendations, it proposes helpful remediation actions as well. So it also tells you which best practice and recommendations you're not following, right? And help you to remediate, or actually tell you how to remediate, what you could do to remediate actually this potential lack for a breach, right? So it's therefore a great solution to manage security across all your cloud environments or many cloud environments, and reducing the risk of data breaches and compliance violations. With Defender for Cloud, you can also monitor
your cloud assets, identify your vulnerabilities, right? Just as I said, and especially misconfigurations, which happens to be for my smaller companies happen many times, right? They want to get rid of on-premise, for example, the small clients and just move everything to the cloud as fast as possible. They just get started, and then a misconfiguration for sure will take place because there was no proper thoughts about it beforehand.
So is there something you want to share with us? What type of misconfiguration do you see?
There are various types of it, right? Often it's network related. So, for example, network related, you just have next finish virtual machines or services configured as they are. So more kind of I would say test deployment and fully exposed to the internet, right? And then you have serious issues then, right? If you open an SSH or RDP port to the internet for a few minutes, and then you're in trouble.
Right. So you make a good point, right? So people have just been doing migration to the cloud, and they come to the oops movement. Oops, machines are vulnerable, and that gives the visibility, right? And so, like, what are other situations? What are the different capabilities of Defender for cloud, basically? We talked about vulnerability scanning. We talk about different protection monitoring. So, is this something you think? Hey, we see a lot of improvement on a lot of area where a customer needs to pay attention, or these capabilities are more helpful along those lines?
I think it pretty much also depends on the size of the company we're talking about, right? And how familiar they are already with IT stuff, let's put it that way. So like small companies with like 10, 20 employees or maybe 50, they're most likely not aware of how dangerous it is out there, right, in IT, and what that could mean business wise as well, right? So I think for them it's a very easy step to activate Defender for Cloud, and a very cost effective, in my point of view, to protect their environment, and also just show them that there are several configurations we can work on, right? So that's most likely have already security engineers and made some thoughts about their security and have tools and so on. So then it really depends: is Defender for Cloud the right solution for them or not? So in my point of view, Defender is a great, or better to say, the solution once a company decided to go cloud or hybrid cloud with Microsoft, right? That's when it's leveraging its full potential, and that's when I think also enterprises start to maybe replace other products, or just in addition also other products, right? Yeah, because once you move to the cloud, in such a case, you want to have a centralized security posture management. And not just a centralized security posture management like they had maybe before. You need one which understands the challenges and the differences and best practices of the cloud, right? It's a so-called new world, and therefore, I really like to use Defender for that.
So we talked about, you mentioned about small businesses, and you also talk about large enterprise where they do a hybrid. So let's take an example for small businesses. What's your recommendation from the day first they need to turn this on, and what type of licensing do they require? And is it only going to protect the Azure workload, or is it also going to protect services running in Microsoft 365?
So the Defender for Cloud itself is also including parts of M365, like, for example, the Azure Active Directory, which is basically the tenant. So it's M365 as well as Azure, right? But it's Defender for Cloud is more focused on the not end user facing part. So it's about VMs, databases, and so on, right? The Defender for Cloud part. But there are many different defenders around, right? Defender for Cloud is one. Then there's Defender for Server, which I already said is kind of part of Defender for Cloud. So it communicates with the Defender for Cloud, or actually is also manageable by Defender for Cloud. And then there's Defender for Endpoint, for example, for your customer-facing devices, right? Your notebook, where your end users are working at, right? So then this is also Defender, but it's another product basically.
So for a small, medium-sized company, it's a no-brainer. They just go all in all with Defender versus the enterprise. They may have any other enterprise solution. And
yeah, I think you have to look at what type of systems you want to protect, right? And therefore, then you leverage the several products. You can go as an example, Defender for Endpoint, managed by a security center, and Intune to manage your endpoint devices, because you want to use the Defender for Endpoint on your endpoint devices, but not leveraging Defender for Cloud. That's an option. Or vice versa.
Okay.
You can also leverage Defender for Cloud if you're going to Azure, using Defender for Cloud to protect your Azure environment and your system, your assets, also on premise. You can integrate them into Defender for Cloud, but then still not using Defender for Endpoint because you already have another license for your endpoints or whatever, right? So you don't have to switch everything at the same time, or not even everything whenever.
Okay.
So you can really leverage whatever you need and whatever you think is best for your business. But back to your question about the Defender for Cloud for small business, I really think it is a no-brainer, just as you said. Once you go to Azure, make sure Defender for Cloud is activated on every subscription you have on Azure, because there are two SKUs of a Defender for Cloud. There's the free one, which already gives you a lot of recommendation and do already some scans. And this is for free. So that's for me a no-brainer. Go ahead and use it.
Yeah, you can test the product before you buy the license. So again, that's good to know. Let's talk about something you were mentioning about, which first time I heard only from you, is the Arc. So first tell us what Microsoft Azure Arc is, and then we get into more detailed conversation to understand it better.
Sure, yeah. Azure Arc is I really like it. It's a pretty cool service. It lets you manage basically your hybrid cloud resources from a single place. That single place will be the Azure portal. So you can use Azure Arc to deploy and configure, and also to monitor your applications and infrastructure across different environments, such as on-premises, as I just said before. Getting back to the Defender for Cloud, because this also makes it possible to manage your on-premise environment, your on-premise systems, your servers in Defender for Cloud, and protect them with Defender for Cloud, and also get recommendations, right? So you bring them into the cloud, into a single management. So that's one thing. So what it really is if you're familiar with the Azure Resource Manager, if you are in the Azure industry, yeah, then you know the Azure Resource Manager. That's the very central part, which, as the name says, manages all the resources. So every JSON template you have is basically an Azure Resource Manager template.
Yeah, known as ARM template, basically.
Exactly, right? The Azure Resource Manager ARM. So Azure Arc really is just the extension of Azure Resource Manager. So you can also use those capabilities on premise, or any edge location, or also different cloud.
So what are the business cases, right? So is it only specific to Azure and hybrid, or can we manage some other thing as well, like different clouds?
Yeah, there are different clouds you can manage. Basically, it doesn't, talking about Azure Arc for servers, as example, it doesn't really matter where that server is running, as long as there is a connection, of course.
Okay.
And internet connection is already enough. There is no need for a VPN or a private network connectivity. Port 443, that's basically enough. And it doesn't really matter where the VM is running. So it could be any cloud, any edge location, or on premise. So yeah.
Wow. Just it's like, I see where it's coming from. It feels like it's like a cloud security posture management, basically. Within Azure, you can manage AWS, we can manage GCP, so you don't have to move away from Azure. The idea is that bring everything to Azure, one dashboard, you have visibility in all the cloud environment used by a particular enterprise or a customer.
Yeah, so what Defender for Cloud does for your security for your security posture, right? Azure Arc is doing for your management posture, basically, right? If you want to put it that way, you bring the management part of your systems into the cloud. So that's one way, right? The RM, the Azure Resource Manager extension with Azure Arc, you can onboard your machines, your servers to the Azure portal, and therefore use cloud capabilities, Azure capabilities, like you do on Azure VMs. Yeah, that's, for example, the monitoring integration. That's a very straightforward example. But also the update management with Update Management Center, you can leverage those things then as well, right? The anti-malware, also change tracking and inventory is a very, very good case, which you can leverage then, right? On-premise, but managed all in a single pane of glass in your Azure portal. So therefore, it doesn't really matter anymore where your machine is running. If it's Azure, if it's another cloud, if it's on-premise, you manage it all in your Azure portal. And the great thing, on the other hand, as well, is now I was talking about how your on-premise environment is getting into Azure. Where it's going with Azure Arc is the other way around as well. So it brings cloud native applications and services to your data center on your hardware you're running in your data center or edge location or wherever. That's where it's getting very exciting.
So so this is something I'd like to understand more. So you bring your cloud stuff in data center. So where do you, this Azure Arc, I believe it's a service. It's in the cloud. So it's a management portal where it gives the visibility to on-prem and in the cloud. Is there a particular example you can, or something you want to explain more?
Like there's a very straightforward example, which is now in preview, is Azure Arc Resource Bridge. Azure Arc Resource Bridge is basically also for service. What we said, now we bring on-premise services, on-premise servers to the cloud to manage. We now can, with Azure Arc Resource Bridge enabled and deployed, we can deploy from the Azure portal VMs to my data center or to my custom location, wherever I define that. The Azure portal, I like to have a new VM in this custom location, which might be my data center, and it should have these specs, right? And then it will deploy it on my hardware I was providing and onboarded. So this is all based on a fully managed Kubernetes extension you're gonna install on your vCenter server or Azure Stack HCI, and then you can run and deploy your VMs out of the cloud but on premise. So that's the management part. Also, there are Azure Arc Data Services, which is another thing then that's based on Kubernetes clusters then as well on premise. So you have to onboard your Kubernetes cluster, and then you're try to go not too deep here. And then you can basically deploy an SQL DB as a service, as you know it from Azure, just the DB as a service on premise on your own hardware without a proper server underneath with an OS you have to manage and so on.
I see a solid business case for the large enterprise, but they want to have more control. They have to put some sensitive data. So basically they will have more control to have their database as a service or VM or Kubernetes cluster if they wanted to deploy in their data center, where they will have more control. And at the same time, they have more of enterprise level governance around that. So yeah, this is pretty interesting. So this is in a preview, right? So have you started using that?
The Resource Bridge, unfortunately, so far I didn't have the chance to have hands-on because it needs a lot of infrastructure on premise with the vCenter or Azure Stack HCI so far. Yeah. But I'm very eager to get my hands on. But Azure Arc in general, yes, I implemented that already several times, and it's a very cool service. Already I really like already the part that I have the single pane of glass for my management in the cloud, so it doesn't really matter anymore where my VMs are running, right? So Defender Arc for server or Arc enabled servers, Arc enabled servers, when I bring them to Azure to manage, so it doesn't matter where they run. I manage them in Azure, and I can leverage also cloud services around that, right? Like I said, the update management and also compliance. You can use Azure policies to check your compliance, and that's also a
That's the big
very,
one.
very big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, compliance is a big one, as I mentioned. Like especially not only in US but in Europe, you have a lot of requirements. Like every country, even they're small, but they have a lot of requirements. Germany versus Switzerland. So again, data residency is one of them, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna address all of those issues. And with the compliance feature, which is another whole different topic, you can pull the report and see how does your infrastructure looks like. Like in my opinion, is more of, if you have to look at it, it's a more of an infrastructure level service, which will, once you have an infrastructure level, basically you're covering everything in the cloud. You give the maximum visibility and maximum control. So yeah, I mean, I'm like, excited now. That's because that's the challenge. You have so many customer, the last customer, they have multiple environments, and that's always the discussion. Hey, how do we want to manage? Right? There's
Yeah.
so much stuff, so it's become really complicated for not the security but also the IT operations. To not only to have the visibility but ongoing maintenance and management. So again, we wrap up. Is there anything you wanted to add? Any advice?
Yeah, of course. My advice is just get your hands on. So both services, if you never heard about one of them, go do your research. It doesn't need much of research. Just get your hands on, learn how to deal with those services and how to leverage those. I think both of them are very well worth to know and to educate yourself. And as I said, most important thing in IT is educate yourself and on daily basis.
Yeah, and if is there anything you want to share? Like, do you write blog or something you wanted to share? I can put in my description if you have any, but you can give it to me offline so people can reach out and read and learn more about you.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
but again, yeah. Okay. So that's perfect. And I really appreciate it, Yannick. And thank you so much for taking out time today to getting on this podcast. And hopefully we'll see you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that.
Booking.com has stays for absolutely anyone. Imagine you're a musical obsessed couple. You book a dazzling hotel in the Big Apple, 5 stars, with a balcony for your big solo. If Broadway buffs can find their perfect stay, anyone can. Booking.com, booking.yeah. Welcome to another podcast featuring the channel Asia Women in Technology. 2023 winner and AI leader Priyanka Shah. With over 10 years in data and AI strategy, she's a Microsoft AI MVP and pioneering in Azure OpenAI and enterprise solutions in Southeast Asia. Her work spans innovative AI applications across industry. Without further ado, let's get started.
Hello, folks. Thanks for joining in another podcast with I Mentor Cloud. I'm your host, Adnan Rafiq from New Jersey, and I have another guest. And today's topic is about generative AI, Azure AI, OpenAI. A lot of going on about AI. And we, at the same time, have a lot of concern about it, data privacy, data security, ethical AI, and all that stuff. Today, I have another expert. She's the Microsoft Azure AI MVP. She's a subject matter expert. So today I have Priyanka Shah. She is from Southeast Asia, Singapore. She's been awarded as an Asian Woman in Technology for 2023, and she works for Evanard in that region. So I'm very curious to know and explore from her about the AI, and at the same time excited to be on my podcast. So welcome to the podcast, Priyanka.
Thank you, Adnan. Thank you so much. So glad to be here.
Yeah. So again, tell us a little bit about yourself. Why not just you tell us what is your winning of channel Asian Women in Technology? What was it for?
This is Channel Asia has this sort of a forum for celebrating women in technology across various domains. So you have technology, you have entrepreneur, you have rising star, you have championing diversity and inclusion in organizations. So as a part of the tech category, I was first nominated for my work partnering with Microsoft for a very wonderful initiative called as Code Without Barriers. So Code Without Barriers is a program which sorts of aims at reskilling people helping them to upskill in the field of AI and machine learning. So as you rightly said, right, there's a lot of buzz, lot of hype about AI. And then how do you get all this new talent on board the AI bandwagon? So Code Without Barriers is one such program targeted specially at women. Right, it could be young women who have taken a sort of pause in their career and then want to restart. So what is a good restarting point? You need to get upskilled in a technology which is upcoming, right? So Code Without Barriers was one such program which we partnered and which we actually, reached out to a lot of women across ASEAN countries. So it was Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and probably around 70 to 80 women. I myself had given, one-on-one sessions for instructor-led sessions for AI 900 certification, AI 102 certification. So that was one part of Code Without Barriers. And then, of course, I am Microsoft AI MVP, probably in the ASEAN region, maybe the only women AI MVP, at least in Singapore, the only women AI MVP. And we had done a lot of work also for autism resource center, right? So which is basically trying to get the autistic people, which are borderline cases, right? So they are good but probably a bit very specific in taking instructions. So we have done a lot of that work for embedding those people into mainstream. So that was also one of the aspects. And this was actually celebrating all of these holistic things: technology, Code Without Barriers, AI ML initiatives, technology leadership, community leadership, as well as CSR, corporate social responsibility.
Wow. Now, this is very inspirational, very interesting that you did like 80, 90 women one-on-one session. This is, and in what time, like a couple of years, a year, 2 year?
Yeah, so it was not one-on-one. It was like, a batch of women. So probably
Okay.
15 to 20 women in batches, but it was an
Wow.
instructor-led session. So probably, most of my day used to go there in those sessions starting 9 a.m. in the morning to 5 p.m. in the evening, sort of a thing. So yeah, maybe, I worked with Code Without Barriers for across 1.5 years to do that, and I still am partnering with them, right? Although I am now more of a mentor, trying to set up hackathons and trying to guide hackathon participants. But yeah, I'm still in close partnership with Code Without Barriers.
Yeah, interesting. I have some ideas which I will circle back, but that's pretty interesting. So I have one more question related to it before we jump into the actual business use of AI.
Sure.
So, like when you are doing the mentorship and conducting the session for the women in AI and all that stuff, so do they have interest? Do they like it? What's the high level perception when you go and teach them?
No, absolutely. Sometimes I have myself been so surprised by the quality of submissions which people have done, because typically, not only just the certification program, but also there are a lot of hackathons which we have set up to encourage people, especially women students and women professionals, to participate and submit their solution to us. We verify, and then accordingly we give them opportunity either at internship or at a job, right? So I have been amazed at the kind of creative thinking and design thinking which all these young, old, or any women out there, they are doing. A lot of empathy. So just very one notable incident. There was a knowledge mining solution to be developed. It was a hackathon question, a challenge. And so most of the solutions, did what they had to, searching, giving search results from documents. But few of the women were also like, hey, what if I'm a visually impaired person, or I'm a person with disabilities and I can't really type into the text box? So they had given this voice characteristic, also voice feature, that I can speak and search, or the result is returned to me in the form of a voice message rather than a text message. So this kind of, out of the box thinking, this kind of empathy, I have rarely seen in any other or run-of-the-mill certification programs or hackathons, right? And definitely there's a lot of genuine interest from women participants. So there were women who were sometimes, in the late 50s, and they were also very curious that, hey, I have been a homemaker all my life, but I take this as an opportunity to start something new. Maybe just for the interest of it, I might not do something commercially with this, but I want to get into the know of things, right? What is this? What will this do to me? How it will affect my children? What should I watch out for my children, the next generation? So yeah, a lot of diverse perspectives, and in general, the energy was quite effervescent. Very enigmatic crowd there, and yeah, I mean, I had fun, right? So there was a lot of curiosity, lot of questions. And the synergy was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting, and I can see your energy, and I can imagine that, and that's really sounds like something you're enjoying a lot. So now, looking at you've been looking at your profile, and you've been a Microsoft MVP, and I know MVP. You really get into the weeds of the products, and so we'll keep it high level for the audience. But again, how the conversation goes. I'm just curious to know: are there any use cases and business cases you want to talk about the use of Azure OpenAI? What was the business case? And give an example, the implementation and adoption of these tools and technologies for the businesses in today's world, how companies are using it and leveraging
Yeah,
this
yeah,
today.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. See, Gen AI, I mean, it's just an year and a half old right now, but then it was really a revolution. Okay. And I say it because we have had business cases prior to Gen AI with AI, and then cut to Gen AI, the kind of speed and the kind of exponential accuracy and growth we have seen is just, I think it's just the start, right? It's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we are at the start. We don't know where this will take us. And there are a lot of businesses who are trying to embed Gen AI into their mainstream business processes and challenges also. So I talk of two, three use cases which we can easily relate to, right? Which are, our daily enterprise challenges. So let's talk about financial sectors first, okay? And I'm directly jumping into the very, critical sector, because
All
finance
yours.
data is not something very easy to work with, and a lot of transaction, customer sensitivity, and customer confidential data. But in any case, so very simple use case, right? So you have these websites of banks, right? So all of these, your global, well-known banks. So you have their websites, and they have a lot of product information there. They could have their wealth management product and insurance product, credit card offerings, and a lot of other stuff there, routine information, annual reports, disclosures. Okay. But then still, you and me have often experienced this, right? So let's say I have a credit card of XYZ bank, and then I'm traveling overseas, and there's a transaction which was charged twice, or some transaction, which was a fraud transaction, and then we call the a call center, and then typically they are like, oh, this is a credit card related, fraud related inquiry. So they put you on hold, they transfer you to some other department. I have to repeat my story to the next department, and it's not a very good experience, right? And we have all experienced this. So now what banks are saying, right, before we actually go on to use cases like wealth advisory or robo advisory using Gen AI, let us look at the simple scenario. So I have all my information out there. Now, when a call comes in from a customer for these kind of things like, oh, my credit card expired, and now you don't offer the same credit card anymore. So it was a great, I used to get a lot of points on fuel savings and stuff like that. So can you recommend some similar offering to me, some similar product to me? Or I used to have XYZ card of some bank, and now can you offer something to me on the same lines? These kind of inquiries, product recommendations, or how can I be a privileged customer, a privileged banking customer, those kind of things. So instead of routing all these calls to agents and then, putting you on hold, what if when the human calls, like when the user calls and the branch manager is listening to his queries, the conversation, of course, with your, permission of the user, is being transcribed live. Okay. And the Gen AI is listening to this conversation. The Gen AI is now understanding, oh, this is a product related question. So it will look up the documentation. It will directly fetch the answer, give to the branch manager, and the branch manager can, without putting you on hold, he will give you the answer. Also, another advantage of this is the Gen AI is able to listen and transcribe the entire conversation, and it can give out business insights. It can give out recommended action items. It can summarize the conversation. It can also give tips for how the agent himself did, right? Like, was he able to answer the question correctly? Was he polite? Did he answer the right questions? Sometimes branch agents don't even know what kind of questions to ask. So if I'm coming with a complaint, what is the checklist, right? Oh, did you do this? Did you do this? Have you sent a mail? Do you have the transaction ID? Those kind of things. That also, the process flow also they don't know. So they might refer you to some department or put you on hold, look at the documentation. Well, what if Gen AI is able to look up all these standard processes, policies, and then every time, these kind of inquiries come, it comes with all the check boxes for the branch agent to follow. And then after some time, when it matures, you won't even need the branch agent to do these kind of routine things, right? Maybe he'll be required for specialist things like, oh, now actually onboarding a customer or generating an SOW for some banking client or a banking, enterprise customer. All these routine things about, I want to close my credit card, I want to, report this fraud and stuff, can be taken care by the Gen AI itself. And I think it's a very simple but very powerful use case, which is giving me as an end user a better experience, and also as a branch agent, my headache of looking up all of these diverse documents and all is offloaded. And this knowledge, mining policy Q&A and your enterprise documents Q&A is one of the heavily used, heaviest adoption use case we have seen. Everyone wants to do that, right? From defense, government, healthcare, because everyone has some or the other kind of public data available, procedure data, policy data. And, with the help of Gen AI, just get the right information at the right time to the right person. I think, so that is one of the use cases which we are seeing.
But at least in these 1 or 2 jobs are gone for sure, for the first line, I guess, for the repetitive task. That's what you have to accept. Like, those jobs are gone. But user experience is going to be better. And that happens with the technology, right? There are no job security, even in IT and cloud. So people who do not learn cloud, they're learning the basics, they're going to lose the job. So that's the only thing the only thing constant in IT or tech is the change. You have to keep. So that's one of those things. So again, and I think I've seen a lot of these cases, like we've seen Meta and all that, like they have the Facebook shops and all that. So everything is, they have a chat board and automatically pops up and automatically answer you some of this question. So which is good. But going back to the point, like banking and all that, they are trying to become more productive and want to give a better user experience when they have these repetitive questions from customers. Hey, how do I do this? So basically, do they all have a same model of machine teaching, because the machine is responding to your question? It has already been taught. So is across the banking system is one machine model, or every bank is teaching their own machine model? Do you happen to know?
Yeah. This is a good question, right? And I think, it's again sort of debunking a myth for a lot of, Gen AI adopters out there. Okay. So see, when we talk of chatting with your own data, right? What we are saying is interact with your own data. Essentially, what you are doing is you are using the Azure OpenAI, but then limiting it to answer questions or queries from your own enterprise data corpus. Okay. It does not it will not answer any overarching question about your competitor banks or, who was the scientist who discovered the quantum mechanics, for example. So the Gen AI, which you are producing or which we are developing for a particular bank using Azure OpenAI or any other, large language models, foundation models, will be restricted to the domain information and the knowledge which you are exposing it out. So we have certain patterns called as RAG, which is called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG fusion, right? So which enable you to sort of restrict your field of inquiry to the documents you expose to the Azure OpenAI, right? And then a lot of these banks do the same things. And then, as you rightly said, there could be certain scenarios in which I want to train my own model. Okay, so for example, one of the global banks, they want to train their own AI model, fine-tune their own AI model on the risk and compliance domain alone, or a credit risk analysis domain alone. So then they have their own, fine-tuned models, right? Again, they could start from scratch. They could use some of the base models and then fine-tune them. So each bank has a lot of alternatives how to build these kind of different models. Either use RAG, either use their own fine-tuned models, either keep everything on-prem and use open source models and build their, a Gen AI platform. So a lot of options, but all of these options are very secure. They have a layer of AI governance on top of that, responsible AI framework on top of that, which ensures that in no case your data is breached.
So let's talk about a little bit more on that. This is my most favorite topic. You mentioned responsible AI. You also touch base on risk and compliance.
Yeah.
So can you dig deeper? How do they achieve, and what's the use case for that?
Yeah. So so these are two different things, right? So when I talk of risk and compliance, or when I talk of data sovereignty, so one of the roadblocks which we, as SIs or consultants, we face in Southeast Asia is Azure doesn't have a data center yet in Southeast Asia. I think Japan is the closest one, but then in Singapore specifically, we don't have a local data center. So all of my Azure OpenAI deployments are done in regions outside of Singapore. So for health and public sectors and banks and government in Singapore, there is this, concern of data residency and sovereignty. So my data, whichever it is, non-confidential or, otherwise also, can't leave Singapore to go to a deployment of Azure OpenAI. Let's say it could be
in a different region.
Yeah, Central US, for example, and then use the API and give me back the result. So that becomes an issue for us, right? So how do you then ring fence these things? How do you ensure that these data confidentiality, sovereignty, security, residency issues are mitigated? So Azure OpenAI itself, right? If you see, they have a lot of inbuilt guardrails for ethical AI. So they do all these. I mean, so first of all, they have a lot of things which, people have misconception that are you storing my data? Are you storing my prompts? So OpenAI is stateless. It doesn't store your prompt. It doesn't remember you. It doesn't remember your sessions, right? They have a feature of storing your prompt for 30 days only just to have content moderation. That also you can voluntarily turn off, right? So that AI content safety feature is there, right? Like I need to moderate what are you asking the bot? Are you training it on some harmful content? Those kind of things. But that also you can, by permission, you can turn off the auditing and logging of your prompts, okay? So all of these things are inbuilt into Azure OpenAI, okay? And then on top of that, we have our own guardrails, right? So for example, when it comes to sensitive data, we tell the banks that if there is any PII data, you are going to cleanse it, mask it, double encrypt it, and give it out to us. We also do techniques of pseudo-anonymization and a lot of other things. Yeah, go ahead.
So let's pause down. This is the stuff. Yeah. So you mentioned about masking and data de-identification and all that. So so these are capabilities you're saying available when you deploy your Azure. So whoever system is going to be more technical, but these are capabilities, the systems, whoever is going to manage that, they have the capability. So for, let's say, if I have to mask something, so you're saying those controls or guardrails are available, then they can enable it. And then data, I'm sure encryption comes by default, so they can have that also. So no clear text data on top of the data is being masked. All these things you're saying are available today.
Yes, are available not as a part of the frame, like not as a part of Azure OpenAI framework, but then there are a lot of libraries there, right, which you can use. So you have to enable it by yourself. You have to write
we are talking
Azure
about
functions or scripts.
Yeah, you're talking about same shared responsibility model is applicable here. Hey, this is what Microsoft is responsible by the customer. You bring your data, then we give you the control, then you pick and choose. Like it's sensitive data, make sure you do this. If there's no sensitive data, you don't need to. So shared responsibility model within OpenAI we are talking about.
Absolutely. And for certain domains, like, government or defense, where the data can't even go to cloud. Whatever the data, it could be just your defense policy related data, but it can't go on cloud. So in those cases, we have done end-to-end on-prem implementation. So you have a lot of open source models, right? Open source models like Llama 2 and Mistral and Falcon. So we have also enabled this kind of totally on-prem disconnected generative AI. So it involves a lot of, GPU and optimizations and hardware optimization, hardware costs. So it's a decision which we have to make, right? Like, do you want an isolated solution where you will do all the hardware investment upfront and then scalability will be a challenge? Or do you want to have a scalable platform in which you can operate on a hybrid mode? So my non-confidential public queries will be taken care of, non-sensitive data and its queries will be taken care of by the cloud providers, and by totally sensitive and confidential queries will be taken care of by my on-prem platform. And both of them together will work in a way that, it can answer any of my questions.
Nice. Okay, that's okay. Interesting. So same cloud hybrid option we have in Azure OpenAI. So businesses I can think of, if there's a Department of Defense, a Social Security Office, or maybe the New Jersey state where we have our personal identifiable information like home address, phone, my driving license details. So it's up to them whether they want to have it on-prem or in the cloud. But even what you're saying with the hybrid, the data can be in the on-premises data center, um, stay wherever it is. But when you make those API call and machine learning and everything can be done in the cloud and show on the graphical user interface on the screen. So nothing is stored in the cloud, only the AI and all this stuff is working and showing the results.
Yes.
Correct? In my understanding is right?
Yeah, true. Yes.
Interesting. And do we have also the same identity and access management control, RBAC and all those capabilities in OpenAI, where I can?
We do. Yes, we do. So if there's for people who are curious to know about that, you can just go to Microsoft Learn, and they have a huge write-up about responsible AI around Azure OpenAI. How each and every component is governed. How you can ring fence the access control. How you can give role-based access control, granular access control, right from your vector databases to your indexes, to your indexing engines, to your document stores, all of that. So it's a fantastic write-up. I mean, if I start going into the nitty-gritties of that, I would probably take an hour or so. But yeah, a lot of this is documented very clearly in all of the Microsoft documentation platforms. And yeah, I mean, I would encourage people to just go and read about it.
And out of curiosity, not necessarily you may need to know the answer. Out of curiosity, what have you seen so far? How long does it take to teach a machine or AI model? Like, is it a couple of weeks or a couple of months we are talking about?
Interesting, right? So I'll give you a statistic, and it's a real statistic for a knowledge mining platform, which we have implemented for one of our oil and gas customers in Southeast Asia. So before GenAI, we let's say for 300 documents, to process 300 documents, so they have a lot of these technology standards and engineering diagrams related documents. So if I have to extract meaningful information out of it, which we call it as named entities, right? So named entities like type of corrosions or type of equipments, different departments like drilling, mining, oil drills and all of these things. Okay. So for these kind of things, because we need to annotate the documents and then have ML algorithms written to actually extract these entities out from those documents, and then have some domain experts come and do the analysis of whether it has extracted the triplets correctly, entities and relationships correctly, and then if not, run again and kind of stuff. So for 300 documents, it used to take us close to 3 to 4 months to get a good quality extraction. This was before GenAI with your classic, text analytics and natural language processing algorithms. Cut to GenAI now, because you can teach a machine directly with the few short prompts, right? Like imagine you are a program which is able to extract triplets out of text. And then, for example, given this text, these are the entities. This is the relationship between entities. This is the final result I want. You're just teaching it by examples, like how you would teach your toddler or your children or someone of your colleague. So you're instructing it, and then I just need to give it a few instructions. By the second or third iteration, it has perfected the technique. And then those same 300 documents we could process in 6 hours. So the kind of exponential gain which we have had, because right now when you're teaching a machine, you're teaching it by instructions. Okay, so what we call it as instruct model. You have chain of thought prompting and different kind of few shot prompting. So it's very easy for it to understand few scenarios. Again, when you're fine-tuning models, yes, because you're fine-tuning on top of base models, you still need to go through the rigorous process of, my training data is there, then I'm training on a specific use case, and then I'm getting the final model. Yeah, but then generic in prompt-based teaching is quite easy, but when you have to fine-tune for something, probably a slightly longer duration.
No, this is interesting. No, I think, there's a lot to cover. As I said, this is like a never-ending topic, and if we talk, like, it's going to take hours and hours. But this was really informative. So before we move on to a little bit, 1 or 2 minutes, I want to spend career perspective. But give an example of a prompt, something. Something you think you have seen it, like as you mentioned, they are predefined, and you have to instruct, hey, act to me like this. And then, so is there something your favorite prompt or something you have seen most common scenario?
So the best prompt which I see always is, where it is asking for document summarization. Okay, so because you have this huge documents which typically, your admin guys will be able to go through and summarize. Or the best prompt I have seen is what your Teams Copilot does. Summarize what I missed. Or if you are in the middle of a meeting and you are like, probably you got a call or something and you missed few things, immediately go to the Teams Copilot and type what are some of the action items on me, or summarize what I missed, what has been discussed till now. So very useful things to do.
So that's interesting. And what you just mentioned, my takeaway is that if Microsoft Copilots is all open AI underneath, basically that's the Azure Arc infrastructure. So Microsoft has gone beyond and done a good job to pre-teach and teach the model, like whether you're using Microsoft Outlook or Team. Right. So this is like another different area people to explore. And your example is a perfect example. Like, give me the action items, and then many more. Even when I use the Chat GPT 4 these days, I tell Chat GPT, hey, what if I write something, give me an explanation in the word of, we have a very social media marketing person, very famous in US, called Gary V. I tell him how a Gary V would describe this, or how a Bill Gates would react to this or answer this, or give me a Steve Jobs version of this. So it does come up with because the machine has already taught their psychic, their style of thinking and everything is there. So that's another way. And I was like pretty shocked, and just comparing the language it is spit out in terms of the text and everything. So let's spend a minute or two before we hang up. Somebody who wants to either transition or wanted to start their career, what would you recommend? Usually people get to me for the cybersecurity and all that stuff, not AI. But again, concept is same. People even have some bachelor, they have master, they don't have experience. I mean, what would you tell them to, in terms of learning, other than Microsoft Learn, project wise? What are those things they can do to really get into the market and have the good skills?
Yeah, see, one good thing with Gen AI is, that AI is democratized. So they have put a lot of power in the hands of everybody, not just developers. So earlier, when, we used to be data scientists or ML engineers, some of the tools and frameworks and Python libraries and deep learning and neural networks and all used to be our specialized domains, right?
Yeah.
So now with the advent of this low code, no code platforms and especially, generative AI, it has democratized AI and put a lot of power in the hands of every other person. It could be a non-developer, it could be a salesperson, it could be an exec, right? So my suggestion is for people who are wanting to onboard this AI journey, AI bandwagon, just, start from anywhere. There's a lot of tools and frameworks. Start with the basics, right? See what is large language models, what's large foundation models, how you are interacting with them via prompts, what are different types of prompts. Then you can go a bit deeper into, all of these libraries like LangChain and what goes beneath the, behind the scenes. Then you can actually, and you have a lot of these, playgrounds. So OpenAI gives you a playground. You have $18 worth of free credit or $20 worth of free credit to try out few things. Azure OpenAI, you can start up and you can have this low code, no code experience. So there are a lot of these frameworks, lot of these cloud providers. Google does the same thing. You can just go there and have go at that playground and see how to have this low code, no code experience. So just start. And again, you don't require any programming experience as such because you are going to instruct in natural language. So your English is your programming language. So just have this thirst of, upskilling, reading new things. And I think you can just get into the flow of things, right? Once you're into it, then you are curious, you want to do more, you want to know more, then you can go as technical as you want to. But then I think right now getting into Gen AI is not too difficult if you know the starting points. And the starting points are, as I said, all of these open source platforms, all of these great, cloud provider platforms that can give you that confidence. Copilot Studio, for example, that can give you this confidence to start small, start with a low code, no code experience, and then move on to, greater technical things.
No, all that good stuff. Really like that. So again, people, AI has both sides, good and bad. With this, all the things what we have learned: productivity, automation, low code, no code. I can already see. I can go on how life can be easier when it comes to system administration, security, and we've seen AI and security for so many years for threat monitoring and alert fatigue and all that. So AI is all behind the brain. But on the other side, we will see some concern like around the deep fake, the voice. We already seen those, the video scams. It depends. There's a good use and there's a misuse. So that's being said, Priyanka, I really appreciate it. Appreciate the time being on this podcast, and hopefully we'll see you again with more questions. But really appreciate it all the way from Australia.
Thank you so much, Adnan. Thank you. And it was a pleasure being on this platform. And sure, anytime you want to know more, I'm always there to share about all I know about AI.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in another podcast with Cyber with Adnan. I'm here at IC2 New Jersey, the only cybersecurity conference here in New Jersey. So if you are here, I hope you are enjoying it, and I have an opportunity to meet one of the industry leader, very known Dr. Ardal. So welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you, Adnan.
Taking this time on this short podcast. And I wanted to take the opportunity first, starting by introducing yourself, and then we go on to the questions.
Dr. Ardal, right now, I'm the president of Global CISA Forum. Besides that, I'm author, speaker in many conferences like this one.
Yep.
Trying to be part of the community, giving back to community. And as you said, I'm a CISO for decade as well in different companies. Right. I worked as CISO in a large global bank, to a mid-sized cybersecurity company.
Right.
Spent more than 25 years in IT and IT security.
Right.
So,
yeah, I know.
Thank you for the invitation.
And absolutely personal, like we can spend hours and hours talk about, because this much information you have and the experience you
Thank you,
have.
my friend. Thank you.
I hope, but in this we will keep it very crisp. And something was bothering me. We always see cybersecurity training and learn this and all that, right? So I have not asked this question, or maybe, where does this technical control really fail?
It's always, you learn when you start on IT the OSI layers.
The OSI layer, yes.
7 layers,
7
right?
layers, yes, exactly.
No, there is 8 layers.
Human layer then.
And the 8th one is human.
Okay.
No matter what you do in the application layer or the data link,
Yes.
or
physical layer. Or in
at the
between.
end, it is failing right on top.
Okay.
You might have the best controls.
Right.
I don't know, maybe some people read my article, which I published in my blog couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Coinbase, they had a great cybersecurity system, all the security tokens, up-to-date patch management system. Guess what? The contractors were bribed.
Yes.
Someone paid,
Yes.
and they were giving the information away.
Right.
So
What's the point?
it's not clicking, but it's still the human error. Or when we look at Verizon data breach report, we
Yes.
still see that
Right.
phishing, if not the first, like 10 years ago,
Right.
it's still the second of causing cybersecurity incidents.
Right.
No matter what you do,
Right.
sometimes it's privilege access issue, sometimes it's identity management issue,
Right.
sometimes it is God knows what issue. Unfortunately, we still fail on the human side of security.
Right. So is there a solution to that? I know training, but I've seen people complaining, hey, we don't want to do this much training in for social cybersecurity awareness training companies, they do it. But do you think, is there a solution? It's never going to be a
Honestly,
solution.
the biggest issue, we think training as training. We should do customized training. If you train the CISO and your IT guy and your SOC manager and your HR the same way that you train the business, then you're going to fail. Training has to be customized. With CEOs, you have to speak differently.
Specific.
With HR, you have to speak differently.
Right.
With IT, you have to speak differently. With security people,
Right,
you have
right.
to speak differently.
Right.
And training is still the issue. Training is still the solution, but giving the right training. And the biggest issue that I see in the industry is they use this mega word training.
Yes.
But unfortunately, they use it in the wrong way. And of course, there is done when we say training, everybody's talking about passwords, keep changing your password. Hey, NIST 2.0, password guidelines has changed.
Yeah.
Do simple MFA.
Right.
Do tokens, or try to utilize what is already given with your phone, like
Right,
Face ID
right,
or
Basic
Windows
stuff.
Hello or fingerprint in Mac.
Right.
There is already some basic stuff that you can do. And I always say this: look, you can spend $1 million in cybersecurity,
Right.
or $1 billion.
Or whatever. Yeah.
At the end, the basics is
mean-
the most important stuff. It's not how much you spend, it's how much you really care. And as I said,
Right.
you might spend $1 billion. All what we can do is make hackers' job harder.
Right.
They're like water. It's
Yeah.
raining outside now.
Yes.
The water is always gonna find its way.
Yes.
And hackers,
Always.
threat actors are the same way. They are like water.
Yeah,
They will
yeah.
go in and find their way.
Right.
And all what we can do is minimize the effect,
Right. Absolutely.
in my opinion.
No, you nailed it, because for hacker, they just need one backdoor.
Exactly.
No matter how many people you have in your blue team, 10, 12, whatever. If there's a 1 weak point, and usually it happens to be the breach you just mentioned about
Coinbase, it's
human.
public. It's public.
Yeah, it's public. So this is interesting. Even no matter what they had, and like the point you mentioned, training has to be customized. You just don't have a cookie cutter training for everyone.
I mean, look, I know you deliver great training yourself.
right.
For me, even though I know I learned many stuff from you, but if you
Appreciate
train
that.
my wife the same way as
No
you
way.
train me,
It's not
even
going
though
to
she's
work.
in IT, she's gonna say, this guy is rocket science.
Exactly. No, exactly. I agree. Yeah. And
So
this is
training-
this is the biggest challenge in cybersecurity.
Training, yes, the word training is misled.
It's tailored. It's got to
Yes,
be customized.
it's like everything. Food. I'm
Right.
hungry. Let's eat. Hey,
Right.
maybe I have dietary restrictions. Maybe I got allergy. Maybe I got religious restrictions.
Right.
Maybe
Anything. Right.
So the word food is also misleading.
I
Finding
see.
the right food, the good food is important.
And you
Same
need
like
to know
training.
your body, so you have to discover your environment. So this is where I'm going for the next question.
Please.
So you're a CISO, you get a new project or you new whichever situation. What do you do in first 30 days, basically?
Oh, I got a huge book about it.
Oh, you
So,
do? Okay, please share it. Yeah. I'll put the links in my comments.
Cybersecurity leadership demonstrated.
Okay.
The first 30 days, you have to learn the business. Look, all my life, I was in IT.
Right.
In 2018 or 19, I joined a bank.
Okay.
Global bank.
Right.
I had no idea of banking. At Microsoft, when I was architect, I had many CISOs as my customer, Microsoft customer, which I was advising. But being in the bank, you know what I did in the first 30 days? Try to understand the business.
How does the bank work?
How does the bank work? I'm not talking about TCP/IP. This is same, doesn't matter where you go. Business.
Okay, interesting.
Then, while you learn the business, learn the team.
Okay.
30 to 60 days. Learn who's doing what.
Okay.
Because at the end, let's assume you work in the wonderful company and everybody has, everybody understands everything. Even though then, you cannot do everything yourself. It's like a big ship, which someone has to be the captain. Someone has to paint the ship. Someone has to sail. Someone has to look at the radar. At the end, the captain is, we say still captain, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's still the man in charge or the lady in charge.
Right.
Same in cybersecurity. First 90 days is what the business does, what the teams does, what cross-functional does.
Right.
Leadership. That's really important. Look, I see, again, you didn't ask me this, but let me ask myself a question a lot. I see many companies, we see many companies getting hacked. Then I look at the CISOs.
Right.
Most of the CISOs coming from non-IT background, which is okay.
Right.
Okay? But sometimes it's really important to look at the common ground.
Okay.
I'm coming from technical ground.
Right.
What we're trying to do, I'm trying to use my business acumen skills to learn the business, and they have to understand
the technical side.
Exactly. To be able to manage it in the right way.
Right. No, that's absolutely, it makes sense. And understanding the business, then that kind of skill set for someone then goes to the where and how do you prioritize your things, right? And so now we understand, it's a teamwork. You need to understand the people. It's not about technical thing, as you mentioned. So then what about, let me ask you, is there some basic checklist, something go-to action items you wanted to recommend people who are watching? Hey, at least start looking at this in your environment.
To be a CISO or to be
No, I'm talking, as a CISO, this I wanted to focus because this is where I want to make the most use of your knowledge. As a CISO, we talk about understanding the business. What else you can think of before we wrap it up? And
once you understand the business,
right,
understand the technology.
Okay.
And look, I saw that a huge oil company, it's in Fortune company.
Okay.
They had WAF.
Okay.
Tick box. They had firewall. Tick box. Yeah, and the firewall was doing the job, but the WAF was just sitting there doing nothing. So they have, do you have an antivirus? Yes. Do you have this? Yes.
The checklist.
But how effective is it?
Okay.
Tested. Penetration testing. It could be a solution. For example.
Do the validation.
Validation, like zero trust, right?
Yeah.
Never trust, always verify. Do you have the product? Yes. But are you maximizing it?
Got it.
Like I always say this. How many pairs of shoes do you have?
I don't know, 10.
10 maximum, right?
Yeah.
I bet your wife or your daughter or your mom has more.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But if you want to be what was the champion? Hussein, the Olympic runner. I forgot his name. Jamaican guy. If you want to be Olympic champion, buying more shoes gonna make you more secure?
Absolutely not.
Or practice. If you do some gym, I know that.
Right.
So
it comes with consistency, practice.
Cybersecurity is like going to gym.
Marathon, basically.
You cannot be more secure just watching. You have to know what you have. You have to see how it's being utilized. You have to know how it's been used. And then you have to fine tune it and look for the gaps and make it better, hopefully.
All right. So yeah, what you just said, validation. Nothing,
Exactly.
no excuse. Things you have, don't do the checklist, make sure and verify things are working the way it's supposed to be working.
Correct.
So again, thank you, doctor. I know we can spend the whole day on this.
With you, yes. I always enjoy chatting as well.
I appreciate that. And again, those who are watching, I'll share. He wrote many books. Even today,
you can give the free ebooks that
free book. I'll put in my comments.
It's
I'll put
it there.
Yeah, in my YouTube comments.
You know,
and also same content will go to social media. I'll put it there.
Yeah,
learning from the resource like this is really, it's not learning, it's like a transfer of knowledge. So again, thank you, doctor. We'll see you again.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Have you ever wondered that you wanted to work for DoD or Department of Defense? And what are those requirements? What are the certification? Like, I always curious, wanted to know about it. And that's one of the topic I wanted to bring it on my podcast. And I came across one of the gentlemen, Jonathan Sargent, which I will have him introduce himself. And he is going to share some of the exciting news, what has changed. So without further wait, let's, John, first introduce yourself and we get more deeper into the certification.
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name's John Sargent. I've spent about 26 years in IT and cybersecurity, working for both Fortune 100 organizations as well as some DoD and other government agencies, helping with security, compliance, mitigating risk. An MBA from Georgetown University and a master's from information technology from the University of Maryland, and a bunch of security certifications, which we'll talk about probably as we're going through. Changes.
So yeah, let's talk about, and good, you from Georgetown, so I'm also Georgetown alumni. Good to know that.
Awesome.
I did my master's from there. So let's talk about those who are first time watching this or not familiar. What is DoD basically?
So that's the Department of Defense. So that's all military organizations in the United States.
All right. And for those jobs for DoD, what is the criteria for somebody to get into those, other than like public and commercial space we see versus military?
So yeah, this is not for active duty military folks. This is for civilians who are working for military, because that's a very different, different avenue.
Nice.
But there has been for several years a framework around requirements for particular roles related to cyber in the DoD. And the standard in the past was DoD 8570, which established specific certification requirements when someone was working in cybersecurity within Department of Defense. And they had, there was the Security Plus, CISSP, or CEH, depending on your job role, particular certifications were required. What was missing there was the experience requirements and performance requirements. So while someone may have the certification, I think what was missing and what the DoD recognized was missing was that the exam didn't necessarily prepare you to handle the sophisticated nation state attacks, zero-day exploits, the role that you're being asked to fill. So they revised that standard. So then this 8140 standard has been released. It's built on the DoD Cyber Workforce Framework, and the intention is to expand the career pathways where you could move with certain certifications. It opens up new career tracks. It defines new work roles: cyber defense, cyber intelligence, cyber operations. It still has a certification as part of the requirements for these roles, but there's also demonstrated capability as a requirement. and so they're trying to incorporate experience as well as certifications to ensure people are maintaining their capabilities and they have the appropriate expertise for the role that they're filling.
So what was the old certification number and what's the new? I think you mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the previous was 8570. And then the new standard is 8140.
8140. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is ineffective now. And so you've been talking about the new certification requires you to have practical knowledge, the hands-on experience, just not knowing the theory, right? So can you shed some light what used to be in 850 and then discuss, okay, when it comes to 8140, this is what you expected to learn and show?
Sure. So the certifications are essentially similar that were required for a job category, but they have specific what they're calling KSAs, which are knowledge, skills, and abilities aligned with that role. So that you need to, understand the role from a knowledge perspective. So knowledge of TCP/IP, right? Knowledge of other networking protocols, right? And then skills. Showing that you're able to complete the skills related. So you can configure a firewall. You can utilize the SIM, whatever the role is. And then there's the abilities, which is to take those skills and knowledge and apply them to a real world situation. So the ability to use to analyze packet data, packet capture data, and the role as in this case where we're talking about maybe someone in the cyber operations role. So it's not an entire replacement. It's actually gives some more flexibility, but the intention is to take the focus away from just basic certifications and focus on skills, real world capabilities, have some more flexible work roles with different knowledge, skills, and experience that are required for that particular role. And it allows for some more broader and specialized tracks. And it really does focus on hands-on capability and continuous evolution.
So in 8140, is this set of does it have only one certification or is there a set of certification?
Oh no, the certifications are still based on the job role. And actually, if you were to go to the DoD 8140 site, there is a qualifications matrix that shows for different roles what qualifications are required. Right. And it's pretty extensive. So, right. But there is a breakdown by role, and what happens if you're hired for a role, you have the capability, but you don't have the certification. There's a path to start in the role, get that foundational qualification in the first, I think it's 6 to 9 months, and then complete your qualification to be fully qualified for a role in the first, depending on the role, I think it was like 12 to 18 months of capability to complete all the things you need to take on a new role.
Right. So yeah, they have quite a different role, as you mentioned, like cyber defense or cloud security leadership, right? So one has to choose where they think they fit the most and then set and take those certifications basically.
Right. So there's some kind of foundational qualifications. So that'll be knowledge, skills, and abilities. And then there's also some continuous professional development required. So, and a lot of the certifications have that attached to them, but it's not just a part of the certification. It's now attached as part of the qualification for the job role.
Right. And then anybody can apply for these jobs, right? Any civilian as well?
There may be specific qualifications, like I think you've asked earlier about security clearance.
Right.
That would vary based on where they were working and what kind of systems they were working, whether they require a clearance of any kind or more all the way up through top secret. Whatever
I
the
see.
requirement. That's really focused on the individual role, not the category of role.